Ralph from Sunrise Home Sales, and I have with me today Glenn LeMay from Home Energy Solutions, and he is an expert on making homes more energy efficient and lowering heating and electric bills. We're in a house today that we're doing a complete renovation on, which is good because you could see everything exposed, and we could really maximize some of the techniques that Glenn has to offer. So I'm going to let you listen to Glenn now, and he's going to make some suggestions.
Hi. Yes, and Rich just brought us down to this house down that he's working on. It's an old Cape Cod that was built probably in the 50s, if I had to guess. And this is the perfect time to be able to create a more efficient home. You really have to take advantage of everything and go back to the basics in order to make these houses more efficient. It's not just some window dressing, but a house has to perform well before you can anticipate your high efficiency boiler that you're spending the extra money on, or one of those things. And one of the things that we focus on, because it has one of the greatest impacts on a existing home, new home, whatever, is air changes. How many air changes does the house actually pass through it naturally every hour? House like this that was built to the older standards where we used to say the house has to breathe, well, it didn't need to breathe that much. And when we want to slow down that air change, that natural air changes, a typical house like this back in the day would probably change its air every hour. Every hour, all of the heat that you put into this home is gone, and your boiler fires up again and has to try and keep up with constantly cold, trying to either keep you warm or cool. And here's some of the basic problems that they had back then that they didn't pay attention to. And we represent the Energy Star program, which where everybody's familiar with that brand. Well, actually, a few years back, Energy Star decided to get into new home construction and how to actually build an energy efficient home. So they spent millions of dollars on R&D. They found out that this was a huge area that needed to be addressed if we were going to help slow down the demand of foreign oil into the whole country. I mean, it's a problem that they've been looking at for years and years and years, and reduce that foreign demand. This is just another component of that. To get into the basic components of this house, why we have the advantage here, we can see exactly what's going on at this point. If there was sheetrock on these walls and we were coming in here to try and renovate it to a standard, acceptable at that, so we're not breaking the bank and looking at the return on the investment, this is really, to be really effective with energy efficiency, this is the state the house has to be in to start from the beginning. The structural integrity of the house is still fine, but now we're going to look at that airflow that we were talking about. We have to look at how do you slow down the airflow so that on a windy night, that'll have a huge impact on your heating for that day. And really, do we really want the weather to have an impact on how much my heating bill is going to be at the end of the month? It's not the way you want to try and budget your billing, that's for sure. So we take a look at where the air is coming from, block it, make sure that where we do need air, we'll have it. And that's really where we want the house to breathe, is inside the conditioned space. Up against these walls, there's no reason to have any airflow behind these walls, because conventionally when you put fiberglass up against this wall and everybody recognizes that number that's on the paper of the insulation, well, guess what? That number was applied to that insulation in a laboratory where it had absolutely no airflow, it had absolutely no compressions, no gaps, completely sealed on all 6 sides. So we want to replicate what's actually done in the laboratory in order to achieve those R ratings. Because unfortunately, when you don't, that beautiful, in this case you have like an R19 in this wall because it's a 6-inch rafter. That beautiful R19 you thought you put in there, you're lucky if you're getting R5 out of it when you have airflow flowing behind it. And fiberglass, air passes right through fiberglass. It's not a great, it's the same thing as the filter on your cigarette. Air passes right through it and will. So what happens here, and when this was an originally built house, they probably had soffits off the outside. That wind comes along on a nice cool night and pushes that air right into the house, right up these rafters, and and up and out, and it's part of the air changes that just were taking place inside this house. Well, when we go to renovate this house, we're not going to allow that. We're going to put in a foam on this wall that doesn't allow air to pass through it, doesn't have a compression issue, and because of the fact that we only have 6 inches here, which is an actual 5.5-inch wall, we're going to get a much greater R value than we would with a conventional fiberglass bat. At this point, as I said, we could only go to 19 with a conventional bat, and we said, and that would still need to be air sealed in foam. So you're better off just putting in foam, using that as your primary insulation. Blocks the airflow, gives you your thermal boundary, your air boundary, and your moisture boundary, which is what we're looking to do. All right, here's what Rich has done now. He's immediately he put in new windows into the house. One, obviously you want to protect the house from the weather, but also to change these windows is appropriate at this time. The original windows in this house were probably metal frame, single pane. You know, other than being visible to get see-through, they really weren't doing a whole lot for the homeowner who lived here at one time. Now we've put in double pane glass, but in addition to that, these are also low E, a low E glass. Basically, it blocks the UV light from coming into the house. That does 2 things for you that are really great. One is you no longer get the bleaching from the sunlight that you used to get on your furniture and on your rugs and everything. You could actually see where if the sun from the window, it actually bleached the color out of your furniture. These windows won't do that. The next thing, and probably what excites me the most about these new glass, is the fact that there's solar heat gain, which is the largest single element of why our cooling loads are so high, is because our glass is radiating all this heat into the house. That thin layer of silver that they actually put in this glass blocks that and reflects it back outside, so it stops that solar heat gain from coming into the house and putting such a load on our air conditioning. Here we are in the basement. We're going to go over the heating equipment that we have in this house versus what we're going to put into this house. Now, this has a huge impact on the operating cost of the house because once we make the house much tighter as well as better insulated, well, then our equipment is going to have to run less. That's the whole object of doing all the work upstairs. But we also want to combine that with a high efficiency boiler. And they've made great strides in the heating equipment in the past 3 or 4 years, especially on Long Island, where for years now we've mandated high efficiency equipment to be put into these houses. So back 5 years ago, believe it or not, the price of these high efficiency equipment has dropped significantly. One, because they now have to be more available in the stockroom. They're not a specialty item that people are asking for. But in reality, because we have such a huge heating season here on Long Island, the efficiency of your boiler has a huge impact on your operating costs. So this will run, instead of running it at so many BTUs per hour, it'll be a much lower operating cost. Now you say to yourself, why is that? Well, basically the whole concept, just real briefly, is if you remember your old style heating equipment with this big flue that just rushes out of here, well, basically the boiler would run, it would heat up to 500 degrees, and that whole 500 degrees, all that heat actually roars right out of the flue. The newer systems that we're going to be installing here will have an exhaust temperature of 130 degrees. So all that additional BTUs that used to go out the chimney now will be retained and used to heat the water and to continue to actually directly be applied to the heating the home. Huge difference. Now we also have combined the old style hot water heaters. Just a freestanding unit that sits here all day long, makes 60 to 70, this one's about a 50-gallon tank, makes 50 gallons of hot water continuously all day long, just waiting for you to take that one shower a day or wash your dishes or whatever you're doing with it. But a highly underutilized piece of equipment, and you know what, do we need that much storage? Not anymore. So we're going to either combine that with the boiler and have just a high efficiency storage tank here, or they actually have units now where they're wall-mounted boilers. They're the size of a small briefcase. They'll mount to the wall here to freeing up all this extra space, which is great. But also, it's that you only have one appliance. It will either be providing domestic hot water for the house, or the hot water to heat to run into the heating systems. The real reason for doing this is, at least what gets me up every morning to go do this, is the fact that there's so many things that we can't change with the high cost of living here on Long Island. We can't change the fuel rates. We can't change our taxes. They're not going anywhere. But what we can do is make these houses more comfortable, cheaper to run. They'll be much more affordable. They will have a real impact on the folks that live here on trying to make their ends meet.